Good evening, chat. Testing, testing. Get your ASMR. I'm streaming inside of a loaf. That'd be a crazy place to sit. Oh, the BGM's too loud. ASMR karaoke. Alright, testing, testing. How about now? Underwater stream. Bloop, 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 bloop. That's when I hang out with Abigail. What am I reading today? That's a good question. I was hoping to read a little something I wrote, and then if you have time, maybe another story. Maybe a little higher. Okay, let's see. Let's see here. Okay.
I'm gonna just try talking louder. I was talking really quiet. I'm gonna try talking louder now. I appreciate everyone's patience. Someday we won't be as scuffed. Someday. Okay, I'll just have to talk louder. I had to wake up from putting one of the dough babies to sleep. Took me a second to remember where I was, and so there we go. Okay, I'll just talk louder. That's fine. That's fine. Yay! Homely scuffed stream. Alright, okay. How are you, chat? How's your evening been? There's been a lot of flavor streaming this evening. Did you catch any of the other streams? Oh, yeah. I was enjoying that, the review of the nurses' outfits. I jumped in and out of that stream a couple times. That was fun. Caught some of the other streams today. Made had a nice simple dinner. Just roasted a chicken and cut up some zucchini and potatoes. Just roasted those ones. So pulled some buns out of the freezer, and there you go. That was dinner. Let's see here. Since I had fallen asleep, I need to pull up what I'm gonna read here. Find where I put it. I'm hoping to read a story I wrote some while ago. I just gotta find where I put it. You made 200 jello shots? That's a lot. Are you prepping for a party? I am reading one of my stories. I gotta find where I put it. It was a fun little one. I probably wrote it in my teens. All right, let's see here. Party on Saturday. Whee! I don't think I have any parties this weekend. I think some friends are planning a Christmas party sometime soon. So that'll be fun. Let's see. Okay. I gotta find where I put this story. Hang on a minute. Do you have you guys have any questions? Because it would also be great to just chat a little bit, do some stories, some chat, just chill out. I've got this cozy little reading nook. Very sunny. Here we go. Okay, let's see here. Afternoon story time. It's evening, nighttime here. What are some of your favorite books? So favorite genre is sci-fi and fantasy. And that's mainly what I write in as well. Let's see, some of my favorite stories, some of my favorite authors. It's hard to pick favorite stories, but some of my favorite authors are Larry Correia. He does a lot of really fun books. He's really good at just a good, entertaining story. Eljaji Lamplighter, she has some really good stories, as well as John C. Wright. Let's see who else. C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, classics. G.K. Chesterton, actually, ooh, maybe I can look up some Chesterton stories. Have you guys ever read G.K. Chesterton? I feel like some of his stuff gets really wild and hilarious. I remember as a pretty young teen reading Ball and the Cross. It was a wild ride. I remember just a sequence of events kept happening. I also remember I like audiobooks. Audiobooks are like my main way to get in stories. Fun fact is I couldn't read till I was 10. I was writing stories before then, Um, I probably have dyslexia, so buckle up for me trying to read on stream, but I'll try. Anyway, audiobooks. I love audiobooks. And I remember listening to The Prince and the Pauper, and I didn't realize I had the like the file on shuffle. And then I finally realized I had like the chapters on shuffle. And then I put them in order, and I'm like, oh, this makes a lot more sense now that the chapters were in order. 4 a.m. story time. Oh, hopefully I can tuck you in and get some good sleep after this. Ooh, yes, Robert E. Howard. Yes, Burroughs. Yes, yes, yes. I one time binged a whole bunch of Conan the Barbarian. That was really good. I need to read some more of the classic pulps. Any games I like? Let's see. I like the game Root. That's a really fun game. There's the board game version, and there's also like a online version you can play. That's a lot of fun. I love all the little characters and sort of uh, backstories for each of the characters. It can get really funny and silly. Um, I used to play. I used to play War, like the card game, with my stuffed animals. I would take all my stuffed animals and like put them in a circle, and I'd divvy up a deck of cards. And there might be only a couple cards per stuffed animal, and I'd sit there in my room with my ring of stuffed animals and all the cards, and I would like flip each card for each of the stuffed animals and make them all play War. And it very quickly got down to just a couple stuffed animals, and I'd just sit there flipping cards, playing War with my stuffed animals until one of the animals won. Let's see, other games. Kind of like party games. Um, like I don't know, games that are kind of like simple and just really fun to do with a lot of people. Like what is that? Taco, cat, goat, something that gets rowdy. You guys saw me attempt to play the racing games. I'm I was swerving everywhere. I'm not very good at like video games. I like Hollow Knight. I've played through a little bit of that. Um Not very good at it, but I love the music and the aesthetic of it, and trying to run around in it is a lot of fun. Why is there an option to shuffle audiobooks, or is this back to the time of books on tape and CDs? I did do a ton of books on CDs and stuff, especially from the libraries. I think it was on shuffle because I had probably some sort of iPod, and there's a really great site called the Leverbox project that's partnered with the Gutenberg project, and they have like all these out of date stories that are free to like download. So the Gutenberg has them as like reading files, and then the sister site Leverbox has them as audiobook files that people volunteer, and read them and stuff. So it was just files on my um, what is it, little iPod or whatever I had. So it was just like an album and the files, and I accidentally had it on shuffle. I also, don't you love when you listen to a book? Like recently, I read, um, oh, what is it called? The Tenet of, oh, oh, what is it called? Hang on. Tenet of, hang on, let me look it up. It was by one of the, it's like an old one. Let's see. I think Wildfell Hall. I think it's the Tenet of Wildfell Hall. By, I think it's Anne. What is it? How do you say that? Bronites? Brontes? The Bronte sisters? Yeah. Anne Bronte? Bronte? Anyway, I read that one recently, or audiobook, and I really liked that story. It was pretty cool. I remember at one point I was listening to it and I got to a part where I was like literally jumping around while I was listening to it because I'm like, no, this thing's gonna happen, it can't happen, and this the other thing needs to happen. Anyway, point being, I love when you listen to like books with like different sort of language, like the I don't know Jane Austen ones or that kind of old English stuff, and then like your inner dialogue is like speaking in that sort of dialect or way of speaking, and I'd probably do terribly if I actually tried to speak it out loud, but in my head I have like old English going on whenever I listen to books like that. Or I remember that happened with the Prince and the Pauper like forever ago. You know, I was a young teen, I listened to it and I realized like how much of what you're consuming influences like the inner monologue and dialogue in your head, and contrasting that to like when I would just like I don't know, especially at that age, watching like YouTube videos that had just kind of like whatever fluff or cursing and stuff, and it made me realize that, you know, I don't know, as a young teen, like how important it is to like be aware of what I'm consuming because it feeds into like my my thoughts and my inner dialogue. Um, but I still love love when I listen to something and then my head gets kind of, you know, inner dialogue taking on that language. Ah, yes, Woodland Alliance and woodland animals and politics. It's so fun. Here, yeah, Hollow Knight. It's a good game. The soundtrack, I love the soundtrack. I love all the bug noises. Like when they, I think my one of my favorite characters is the wife of the map maker, who's just chilling in the shop, having to run the shop while her husband's off doing who knows what kind of adventures. And you come in, and every time she's just like, ah, bapanada, and I feel that. Yeah, Hollow Knight. So fun, so fun. All right, let's see. I think I've got the story up now. Let's see. Feel free if you've got questions for me while I'm reading, even just like random ones, put them in the chat and do the little, you know, the little bread emote with the bread and the heart, and that way I can spot them when I scroll back and do some hang out and chat. Good times. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Here we go. Okay, found it. Sweet. Oh, great. I think I wrote this. I must have been, I don't know, maybe 16 or something. Just a fun little story. Um, it's called The Shop on Forgotten Street. So, I'll do my best to read clearly and slowly and, you know, hopefully not mess up any words. All right. The shop was old and musty. It smelled of mildew and dust balls. The velvet curtains were decayed, and every shelf was packed with the things no one wanted. The windows were so caked with dust, only a few stray rays of sunlight made it through to cast shadows in the cluttered square room. Though it had stood on the corner of the street for years, the rusted bell above the door never rang. Even the oldest of residents didn't remember it was there, hidden and tucked away. And while the buildings grew taller around it, shining brighter with new promise every day, the little shop lay forgotten, yet not abandoned. Every day its door was unlocked, dust was swept from the chair, and the lone light bulb switched on. Frail, withered hands hung the welcome sign. Then those hands lay folded on a counter to wait, as they had for years, in case someone might wander in. And after the long day was done, the door was locked tight with care, as if the store held diamonds instead of musty air. The old man could not tell you what day he was born, nor how long ago it had been, but he could tell you the names of every doll that sat on their moldy yet once colorful dresses. And if you asked him the name of his wife or how she looked, he'd only reply, "Beautiful." Because so many years had passed, it was all that remained of her. Yet if you needed something to warm your head, he knew exactly where all the best hats and earmuffs were, whose stitches had long since crumpled to dust and earth. Every day was spent caring for that little shop he'd like to care for, like he'd care for. Blah, blah, blah. Every day was spent caring for that little shop, like he had cared for his children, and who had long ago since forgotten he was there. Alone he sat in his kingdom of dust, but he did not feel the solitude, for he always had his most prized sorry, for he always had his most treasured prize close by, either in his pocket or spread before his dimmed eyes. They reminded him of days past and the man he once was. If you asked him what they were, he'd hold up a card with a grin. He'd tell you the story of the place he had been, of great valleys and snow-capped mountains, mermaids on rocks, and buildings of stone and ice. Whatever dazzling picture the card held, the old man had a story to tell from there, even if it was never told exactly the same way twice. If you asked him where he'd gotten it, it was quite the same. Some days it came from a pirate ship he'd once fought, or from a garbage bin outside a magic shop, or even his wife had painted them to remind him of his adventures. But these days it was rare to find a person to listen to his tales. Every day was harder on his old bones. It was only his store that kept him waking and rising out of bed each day. A girl, no longer a child, but not yet old enough to be vain, suddenly looked up and found herself lost and a little stuck. Before she could pull out her gadgets that flashed and dinged to go on her way, she caught sight, out of the corner of her eye, a shop she had never noticed before. Be it fate or destiny or whatever you may say, something made her notice that faded sign across the way. It was old, its letters faded and hard to read. Before she knew it, she had crossed the street, wondering what it could be. As she entered, the doorbell rang. The doorbell hardly made a sound, and in the gloom it took a few moments before she could see. Shelves lined the wall and boxes piled underneath. Every inch overflowed with things old and broken. Decay and dust seemed to cling to everything. From the ceiling hung costumes and masks, with paint chipping off and the threads thin as glass. She stepped further in and stared at the things on the shelves. Cameras with corroded metal sat next to a faded puppet with broken strings. Hubcaps rotten with rust leaned against the shelf cluttered by tiny shoes with the leather crackling and books with pages as brittle as leaves. The girl slowly turned, staring wide-eyed at what most people would call junk. Her eyes came to rest on the sight of an old man sitting at the counter, a slight smile in the wrinkles of his mouth and a distant look in his eyes. In a voice as ancient as the things surrounding him, he called, "Welcome, my dear." The girl blinked, took a step back, and blinked again, stunned by all she had seen. I'm sorry." She suddenly felt like she shouldn't be there, like she had just been caught in someone else's home. She glanced at the door, thinking maybe she should leave. This place certainly wasn't what she had expected. No, you are my guest," he said quickly. "You are welcome. I will play you music." This time the girl caught the accent in his voice, from where she did not know, but it sounded far away and old. As he spoke, he pulled out a little wooden music box from under the counter, and with one bony hand he wound it up. The ballerina, her paint faded and one leg gone, turned in circles as the soft melody was plucked out. "Please feel free to look at whatever you like," the old man said with a smile and a gesture at the packed room and the curtain, halfway parted, leading to more that the girl had not seen. She stopped backing towards the door and returned the smile. The soft music and the old man's kind gesture reassured her. Walking through the dusty curtains made her sneeze, but the other side held many shelves and more things, like clothes on hangers. She stood for a moment, staring in fascination. Then her pocket vibrated, and she looked down at her phone. The screen flashed with glowing color, casting the room in an odd light, beeping with messages that called her. It was hard not to check everything. The red notification always got to her. But this store was something new and interesting. She realized she was tired of the social game. She had been for some time, but she somehow always came back to the beeping and the noise. But not this time. With a sigh, she held down the button and shut it off. She sifted through boxes, stood on tiptoe to look at shelves. The music drifted through, accompanied by a deep old voice singing a song she had never heard. Everything she saw fascinated her, and she couldn't stop staring. Even as old and faded as the things were, they were so real to her, and she carefully picked up and studied things she had only heard about or seen in books. When she moved to the racks of clothing and hats, she wondered at the styles and shapes. Some she did not understand. Others were downright strange, but many were very lovely indeed. One such was a long, flowing dress with a high lace neck and carefully decorated sleeves and wrist. And though its light pink fabric was spotted with age, the girl thought its beauty rivaled the styles in those fashion shops her mother loved. She exclaimed happily over her new find, but she was also twinged with sadness over how very old and frail it was. There was a tapping on the floor, and looking up she saw the hunched form of the old man, leaning on a cane by the half-drawn curtains. The light overhead cast deep shadows in the lines of his face, but some of those lines were forced up in a smile. "Have you found something?" he asked, nodding towards the dress. She held it up and let the long skirt drape over her arm. "Yes, I think so," she said, but then frowned. "But it's so, well, old." "Would you like to see what it looked like before?" She looked up in surprise. "You have a picture?" "Of a sort," he said, reaching his free hand into his coat pocket and pulling out a small box of cards. He opened the frayed top, and with long, thin fingers, he tried to shift through the cards, but his hands would shake and he'd fumble. Frowning, he turned and began to hobble back to his desk with slow, painful steps. Curiosity and worry made the girl follow, and she watched him closely as he sat down with the creak of legs from human and chair alike. Slipping on a pair of glasses, he slowly dumped the cards from the box and began sorting through them. She now saw the box read, "Tarot cards." Many long moments passed. She glanced from the cards swirling around the counter to the deep old eyes of the man. She noticed how weary those eyes looked when he wasn't smiling. Suddenly his hand shot up with a card, and his face lit up with triumph. "Here you are, my dear," he said, handing her the card. The girl looked at the bright card, a sharp contrast to the dull grays and shadows of the store. Indeed, there was a dress, just like the one in her arms, but colorful and lively as it swooshed around the bare legs of a girl in the picture. She stared, entranced by the beautiful style and liveliness of the dress in the picture, then at the spotted old one in her hands. "Wow," she breathed. "That was my love's dress," the old man said. Is that the girl in the picture?" she asked, pointing to the girl on the card. Long black hair spilled down her back. Both hands held the dress as she twirled and looked over her shoulder with a smile. In a way, she thought it looked like her, at least in the smile. "Oh no," he shook his head, causing the glasses perched on his nose to bounce off and be caught by the chain around his neck. "That was the beloved servant girl of a native woman. You see, one day, as I was walking along the beach on an island far away," The girl listened as he told the story of how he rescued the drowning girl from the fierce tides of the ocean and returned her to her mistress. The girl, orphaned from a young age and working in the house of a fair estate woman, was loved by the aging woman. In return, he was rewarded a safe passage home and the lovely dress for his wife, though she never wore it much, for she was afraid she might mess it up. The girl was captivated by his tale and the way words flowed from his mouth. Never had she encountered someone who could paint such vivid and fanciful pictures in her mind and tell of them like he'd been there. She had to hear more. Plopping herself on a rickety stool, she picked up a card with moon and stars above a silvery lake and asked him to tell her about it. The man's eyes danced as he began the next tale. His body still sagged and his words were careful and labored, but his eyes and mind were alive, though they still seemed to wonder. Time passed, but how much neither knew nor cared. They laughed and smiled, and the tales grew longer. The girl brought him items from the shelves, and he told her their stories as well. The music box was his mother's. She had always played it for him when he was young. The cameras, with all their metal and glass, were from movie-making men who no longer required them, but they had been in many great films. The girl nearly danced from shelf to shelf, plucking up things and lighting up with joy of discovery. Because though they well surpassed her in years, they were real and history and new to her. A shadow passed over the girl's excitement when she heard heavy coughing and turned to see the old man bent over. His hunched shoulders were shaking as he pressed a spotted white handkerchief against his mouth with one weak hand. The old man lowered his cloth as the spasm died, and he saw his young friend looking at him with mouth turned down and her brows pushed together with worry. He tried to give her a reassuring smile, but it was hard when the aches and pains seemed to never leave. "I am fine, my dear. It is just the price of age." Her lips stuck out in a pout, like she didn't believe him, and she looked up about the small room. "It's all this dust," she said. "It's not good for you. You need fresh air." The old man sat his withered throne. The man sat on his withered throne and watched as the girl carefully cleared everything away from the window, unlatched it, pushed with all her might. 1, 2, 3, crack! The window flew open in a spray of dust, and afternoon sunlight rushed in like a warm hug. All right, just a second. I hear a dough baby. I gotta go grab him. All right, we're back. Dough baby is happy. Let's see here. The window flew open in a spray of dust, and afternoon sunlight rushed in like a warm hug. He sat, stunned for a moment, in the light as the flood moved to the rest of the shop, brightening it. But the girl was not done. She found a rag and dusted the windows as the wind carried it away. Then she found water and washed the wood and glass, all the while talking to the old man. He asked her what had become of the world. She told him all she could. Some things made him frown, and others made his eyes light up in wonder. He listened as he talked until the window was clean. She helped him get up and walk over to see. The panes were clear, and the wood once again bright and deep with color. He admired her clever handiwork, then looked out the window, then looked out at the world outside and the small view of the street. "Thank you," he said, looking down with a smile that went all the way to his eyes and made them water in gratitude. "It's beautiful." "This place is what's beautiful, this and that dress," she said, skipping back to where it lay on the stool. Then her eyes lit upon an idea. "Maybe I can clean this up too. I'll need to do some research and get the right stuff." Bong, bong, bong. The girl's head whipped up as the city clock sounded, and she pulled out her phone and turned it on. "Oh no, I was supposed to be home already." She rushed to the door, but then stopped and looked at the dress. The old man saw the look on her face and said, "Take the dress, it's yours." In an instant she had wrapped him in a tight hug. "Oh, thank you," she said, before carefully folding up the dress and heading out. She paused at the door and waved goodbye. "I'll be back tomorrow," she promised, and was gone. He watched from the window as she disappeared down the street with her new treasure and smiled. Then he pulled his chair over and settled in to watch the sun set over the city. The end. Let's see. So, yep, that was, probably wrote that when I was 16. I've always liked that one. Haven't done anything with it yet. Just hanging on to it. Oh, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I have a strong love for antique stores, so this was largely inspired by that. It's a little harder now that there are dough babies that like to grab things. But when I get the chance, I still enjoy walking around antique stores. I'm always taking pictures of things, and I have this idea that I should take some of the things I've taken pictures of and try and write some flash fiction about them. And kind of like sort of fill up the shop on Forgotten Street with all the stories. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it. I can probably do another story. I hadn't picked any out in particular. I was thinking either got some Flannery O'Connor here. I've got some of Jazzy has some good short stories. There's a one I'm thinking of that has a sort of similar thing where it's, you know, kind of a young person learning a lesson, but it's pretty wholesome. Or I could make a drastic shift and go for some Flannery O'Connor, but I'm trying to read as clearly as I can without stumbling over words too much. Got some tea, though, too. This is the cozy reading stream. It is perfect for falling asleep, too. See, do you guys have any more questions while I pick out the next story? Yeah. It's hard, the eyes are already crazy, so trying to read and everything, I'm sure they look even crazier. Whoa. I might need to recalibrate. I'm looking over to the side while I'm reading at the microphone. I'm not sure how much the camera's picking it up. Oh, there we go. Let's just do a little recalibration. How's that? Okay. Ooh. The models are so much fun. Wow. There we go. Alrighty. Let's see. Let's see if I missed any questions. So, I see one comment that says, "This is some good writing compared to what I wrote when I was 16." Uh, you do have to keep in mind, I've been gosh, I've been writing before I could actually properly read or write. Uh, I couldn't properly read on my own until I was 10, and I think that was just my brain took a while to figure it out. But I've always loved stories and listened to stories a lot, and was coming up with stories and coming up with my own way of spelling to be able to write those stories before I could properly read or write. Um, so at 14, I had decided I wanted to like I'm gonna write. I'm gonna learn how to write. Um, and so that's what I did. Spent tons of time. That's the perk of being homeschooled is I could actually spend all my time writing, which is what I did. Of course, now dough babies came along, and different phase of life. The dough babies are more important than my writing, but hopefully I can figure out a way to slip it back in. But the other thing is, right now I'm obsessed with making bread, and so any of my spare time is going to making bread and all these other like homesteading skills I'm trying to learn. So it will come. It'll come in time. I'll fit writing back in one way or another. But I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. It is something I really love, and I feel I have a lot to say and write. But it will come. It will come eventually. Oh, another story I really like? The Anne of Green Gable books. I love those ones. I listened through all of them this past year. I really like them. Especially the first one, Anne of Green Gables, with how like Anne is and her energetic energy and kind of her I don't know the way Anne is reminded me a lot of myself when I was younger. So reading that kind of re-sparked my desire to try and get back to writing. I love that sort of like I don't know fanciful imagining. I also really like speculative, like taking an idea and like playing with it. Oh, I see. Some of my friends are here. Baking books. I have a couple. I have a bread making book. Give lore to each bread I baked. I bake a lot of bread though, and then I eat it too fast. Left children bedtime stories. That's how I learned English. I've got some really cute ones for the dough babies. Maybe I'll end the stream with Goodnight Moon. That's a classic. Actually pretty cute. Might have that one memorized. I don't know why, like I never read Goodnight Moon as like a kid. I don't ever remember reading it. But and then when my dough babies were on their way, or when the first one was, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna get Goodnight Moon in my house because all I've ever heard about Goodnight Moon is people being like, oh, I don't like reading this book over and over again." But then my friend got it for me, and she said she really liked it as a kid. So I was like, okay, well, you know, might as well. And it's actually sweet. I don't mind reading it. I have like a big version and a small version, and the older dough baby boy, um, he likes to him hold the little one and I hold the big book and we have to read it together and he's memorized most of the words and so he'll make us sit there and each have our version of Goodnight Moon and read it together. And it's very sweet. So I like that one. It's a good one. What was do you guys have like favorite childhood stories or books that you read? Give them detailed tragic backstories and make their ends sadder and more meaningful. But I want to eat my bread. I don't want to give them tragic backstories. They're just happy breads. They're just cute fluffy clouds. Ooh, the Redwall series. I didn't actually read that one, but I know it's good. I feel like there's certain things that I'm like I want to read, but I don't know. I'm probably just gonna read them to my kids for my chance to read them. Ooh, um, the Tale of Despero. That one was a really good one. That one's not so much like a kid's like a little kid's book, but just a book that I was read as a kid that I really liked was the Tale of Despero. The what was it? Boxcar Children. We read some of those ones, and the Artemis Fowl series. The first three books were really solid. It got some of the one like let's see. Gosh, now it's hard to remember like exactly what happens in all the books, but I know the first three were really solid, and then they like continued after a certain point that was a good like you could have stopped it after book 3 pretty well, but then they kind of made it so that the story could continue. And the next like I don't know, at least 2 after that one were good. There was like the one where they like teleported to some like demon island or something, and there was Minerva, and there was this character Minerva that was a big character in the book or like really involved in this one book, and at the end of that book was pretty clear that like what is it I don't know, she was a character, she was very involved, she was pretty neat. There's an interesting dynamic between her and Artemis Fowl, and at the end of that book they made it seem very clear that she was going to come back. And then the following books never mentioned her again, just dropped her off of the face of the planet and made like why did you forget Minerva like that? Why did you abandon her? It could have been really interesting with her there. And if you weren't going to bring her back, at least like make it so that it was natural that she didn't come back. And then I don't know. The last book was like the very last book in the series was kind of a letdown. I forget exactly why. It came out much later. That one and like the Arctic one where Artemis is like having like a breakdown. I don't know. It kind of got kind of Hobbit's good, yes. Hobbit's very good. Tolkien is no one can really do what Tolkien did. Haven't read the Odyssey yet. I just read War World 2 history books as a child. Magic Tree House, yeah. Magic Tree House is good. The not from I don't think I've read any of the Homer Price books. Yay, Artemis Fowl. I'm not gonna touch the movie. I don't trust whatever they did with the movie. Is my mouth moving? Ah. Aw, crazy eyes. Ah. Yeah, I know. Why'd they just drop the storyline like that? It was very disappointing. How do you say that? The, by... Okay. Gotta figure out how to read this word. Bydone Chronicles? Is that how you say it? It's Glaveson? I don't know how to say that word, but I have not read that book either. Goosebumps. Ooh, do you guys remember Bunnicula? I remember Bunnicula. I think it's what it was called from the Goosebumps. Fairy tales, yes. I like fairy tales a lot. I think fairy tales serve as a good way for children to like learn how to grapple with certain things, like I don't know. Or what is it that it's like that like cautionary tales for children or something where it's kind of hilarious because it's just like if you don't listen to your like chaperone or whoever, you might get eaten by a lion. Or if you tell lies, you might burn up in a house fire. They're a little intense. Um, I don't know, like fairy tales, like they're all cautionary tales. That's what like a lot of fairy tales were. Was like ways to like express things to children that were over their head, but like give them a chance to like grapple with the emotions around it, I guess, in like a sort of safe environment. And then Disney just like sanitized them all, and so you kind of lost that element. Let's see. Okay, I should pick out. I should do one more story, I think. Let's see. What should I do? I really should have looked this up more. Do you guys want like another comfy story? I've only got one hand now. Let's see what I can do. I have a story about fairies kidnapping autistic kids. It's a good story. I think it might be too long to read right now though. Let's see. Wonder if I can find. I want to read a Flannery story. Change up the pace a little bit. Her writing is really good. It's really pointed, but really good. It's a good story. I've got like a little collection of stories that it's in. I'm not sure where else you can find it. It's called The Rescue of Mr. Spaghetti. It's actually I like it. It's pretty good. It has a bit of a twist at the end. That's like kind of surprising, a little shocking, but I thought was like really nice as far as like things turning out happy. Okay, maybe next stream I'll read that one because it's a little bit longer. Let's see here. What's a short Flannery story? Let's see here. It's hard operating a book with one hand. Dough baby's gotta sleep though. Let's see here. The Barber. Let's see, how long is this one? I've only read a handful of her stories. I don't think I've read this one. Let me try and find a short one. Okay, that one doesn't seem too long, I don't think. How about this one? Oh, this one's short. Okay, this is a really short one. It's called Wildcat. Get another little sip of tea. I don't know what tea this is, but it's good. It's a nice, like, sleepy time kind of tea. All right, so let's see. So I think I read one or two of the Percy Jackson books, but I don't think I think it was like way later after they came out. Only read a couple of them though. Yes. So Flannery, I've read, so her writing is very blunt and it can get really dark. Her work can get really dark. But at the same time, a lot of times there's still like a sort of hope in them. I think what she does is she looks at sort of like humanity at its lowest points at times. and but she was also a strong Catholic, and so she brought like her perspective from that into this. I don't know. She's fascinating. She, I don't know. It's really hard to describe her, but her writing is really good, and her writing's really good at like gut punches and sort of like like a little twist at the end too. And so it's really good in short stories. I've read. She only did a couple novels. She died really young. She had, oh gosh, what did she have? Lupus? I don't know if it was lupus. Um, it was pretty gnarly. She had like a pretty gnarly disease that her father died of, and then she had, and it was really painful. She had to take like steroid shots all the time. This was, oh gosh, when did she live? I'm gonna say like maybe the 50s. When did she live? Hang on. Flannery O'Connor. I got to visit her childhood home in Savannah one time. That was really cool. Let's see. So, oh, okay. So she was in the 19. She was born 1925 and died 1964. She died pretty young. She's fascinating though. Really, and just like really, really good with like punchy stories. All right, here we go. So, I've read a handful of her stuff. I don't think I've read this one I'm about to read, but let's go for it. It seems fairly short. It's called Wildcat. So, here we go. Oh, and also I was saying, I've read one of her novels, and while it's good, just her style of writing is kind of intense. So in the long form, I was getting so much anxiety because there was this thing that was going to happen, and you knew it was going to happen, but you didn't know when, and it was just like this anxiety building through the story. It was that one was The Violent Bear It Away. Good book, but man, it's intense. Good night, swag master. Sweet dreams. All right, I gotta make sure I stay close enough to the mic. Here we go. Ugh. All right, hopefully I can read this well. Oh goodness, yeah. It's gonna have accents. Like, she also writes a lot about like sort of backwoods people. It's like the hillbillies. She tends to use them a lot to kind of show these different stories. All right. Old Gabriel shuffled across the room, waving his stick slowly sideways in front of him. "Who's that?" he whispered, appearing in the doorway. "Oh gosh, oh no! Oh no! So, oh no! Oh no! So, the other thing, the other thing about Flannery is, she lived in, the 20s to the 60s. So, largely her writing was before, like, the civil rights movement. And she was actually, like, I don't think her writing became really well known until people started being more accepting to the civil rights, civil rights movement. And she's writing about these, these, the times were different and the people were different. And so there's a certain word in the second sentence that I'm not gonna say. So we're just gonna come up with a different word here. Let's see. I don't know. Maybe the word jigger. How's that? Or maybe just man. I don't know. Oh no. I just flipped through and opened to a page. Okay. Pumpernickel. Okay, I'll use the word pumpernickel. Oh man. Of course, of course. Like I said, different time. Uh, and there's yeah. Anyway, okay. Upstanding citizen. I like pumpernickel. Okay, we're gonna start over here. Old Gabriel shuffled across the room, waving his stick slowly sideways in front of him. "Who is that?" he whispered, appearing in the doorway. "I smells for pumpernickel." Their soft, minor-toned laughter rose above the fog's hum and blended into voices. "Can't do you no better than that, Gabe? Better? Oh, can't you do no better than that, Gabe? Is you going with us, Grandpa?" Oh, there's no dialogue tags. I need different voices. Alright. I feel like I'm walking in a landmine here. Okay. Let's see. You ought to be able to smell good enough to get our names. Old Gabriel moved out on the porch a little ways. "That Matthew and George and Willie Myrick, and who that other?" "This Baum Willings, Grandpa." Grandpa? Gabriel felt for the edge of the porch with his stick. "What y'all doin'? Set down a spell." "We waitin' on Mose and Luke. We goin' huntin' that cat." "That, yeah? What y'all huntin' with him? What y'all huntin' with him? Blah, 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 blah. What y'all huntin' him with?" Old Gabriel muttered. "Y'all ain't got nothin' fit to kill a wildcat with." He sat down on the edge of the porch and hung his feet over the side. "I done told Moss and Luke that." "How many wildcats you killed, Gabriel?" Their voices rising to him through the darkness were full of gentle mockery. "When I was a boy, there was a cat once," Gabriel started. "It come around here huntin' blood. Come in through the winder of a cabin one night and sprung in bed. And a boy tore that... Oh, let's see. Sprung in bed with a boy and tore that boy's throat open before he could holler good. That cat in the woods, Grandpa, is just come out to get cows. Jupe Williams seen it when he gone through to the sawmill. What he done about it?" "Started running." Their laughter broke over the night sounds again. "He thought it was after him." "It was," old Gabriel muttered. "It after cows." Gabriel sniffed. "It comin' out the woods for more than cows. It gonna get itself some folks' blood. You watch. A yowling and y'all going off huntin', and it ain't gonna do no good. It going huntin' itself. I've been smellin' it." "How you know it that it's you smellin'?" "Ain't no mistaking a wildcat. Ain't been one around here since I was a boy. Why don't y'all set a spell?" he added. "You ain't afraid to stay here by yourself, is you, Grandpa?" Old Gabriel sniffed. He felt for the post and pulled himself up. "If you're waiting on Moose and Luke," he said, "you better get going. They started over to y'all's place an hour ago." Oh, that was him saying it. Alright, hopefully this is going well. This is a little trickier to read. "Come in here, I say. Come in here right now." The blind boy sat alone on the steps, staring ahead. "All the men gone?" he called. "All gone but old Hoozle. Come in." He hated to go in among the women. "I smell it," he said. "You come in here, Gabriel." He went in and walked to where the window was. The women were muttering at him. "You stay in here, boy. You be tracking that cat right in the room settin' You'd be tracking the cat right in this room sitting out there. No air was coming through the window, and he scratched at the shutter latch to open it. Don't open that window, boy. Yous don't want no wildcat jumping in here. I coulda got with them. I coulda gone with them, he said solemnly. I coulda smelled it out. I ain't afraid. Shut up with, let's see. Shut up with these women like he was, too. Rebecca says he can smell it himself. Or Ruba says he can smell it himself. He heard the old woman groan in the corner. They ain't gonna do no good out hunting it, she whined. It right around here. If it jump in this room, it gonna get me first. Then it gonna get that boy. Then it gonna get... Hush your mouth, Ruba, he said his mother. He heard his mother say, I look after my boy. He could look after himself. He wasn't afraid. He could smell it. Him and Ruba could. He'd jump on them first. First Ruba, and then him. It was the shape of a regular cat, only bigger, his mother said. And where you felt the sharp points of the house cat's foot, you felt big knife claws in a wildcat, and knife teeth too. And it breathed heat and spit wet lime. Gabriel could feel its claws in his shoulder and its teeth in his throat, but he wouldn't let him stay there. But he wouldn't let him stay there. He'd lock his arms around his body and feel up for his neck and jerk its head back and go down with it on the floor till its claws dropped back from his shoulders. Beat its head. Beat. Who with old Hoozle? Said one of the women asked. Just Nancy. Ought to be someone else down there, his mother said softly. Ruba moaned. Anyone go out gonna get sprung on before they gets here. It's around here, I say. It's getting closer and closer. It gonna get me sure. He could smell it strong. How it gonna get in here? Y'all just frettin' for nothing. That was thin Minnie. Nothing could get her. She'd had a spell on her since she was small, put there by a conjure woman. It came in early, if it wonder, Ruba snorted. If it wanted. It tear up that cat hole and come through. We could be down to Nancy's by then, Minnie sniffed. Y'all could, the old woman muttered. Him and her couldn't, he knew, but he'd stay and fight it. You see that blind boy there? He the one that killed the wildcat. Ruba started groaning. Hush that, Mother ordered. The groaning turned to singing, low in her throat. Lord, Lord, gonna see your pilgrim today. Lord, Lord, gonna see your... Hush! His mother hissed. What that I hear? Gabriel leaned forward in the silence, stiff, ready. It was a thump, thump, and maybe a snarl, away, muffled, and then a shriek, far away, then louder and louder, closer and closer, over the edge of the hill into the yard, and up on the porch. The cabin was shaking with the weight of a body against the door. There was the feel of a rush inside the room, and the scream was let in. Nancy! It got him, she screamed. Got him, sprung in through the winder. Got him in the throat. Hazool, she wailed. Oh, Hazool! Later in the night, the men returned, carrying a rabbit and 2 squirrels. All right, now there's another little break. Is this working? Oh, I'm trying my best at the southern drawl. I want to get some more tea. It's really hard. It's hard reading in general, and it's really hard reading these accents, but oh well. Old Gabriel crept back. I think this is now back when he's an old man. I think we time skipped to when he was a boy and he was like, I'm a blind boy, but I can get that cat. Now we're back to him as an old man. Old Gabriel crept back through the darkness to his bed. He could sit in the cabin a while, or he could lay down. He eased down in bed and pushed his nose into the feel and smell of the quilt. There won't be no use to do that. He could smell the others, just the talking about it. There it was one evening, different from all the smells around, different from cows and ground smells and wildcat wildcat. Tool Williams seen it jump on a bull. Gabriel sat up suddenly. It was nearer. He got out the bed and pushed the door. He had bolted that one. The other must be open. A breeze was coming in, and he walked in it until he felt the night air full in his face. This one was open. He slammed it shut and pushed the bolts in. What was the use to do that? If the cat aimed on coming in, it would get there. He went back to the chair and sat down. It came in east if it wanted. There was little drafts all around him. By the door there was a hole the hound could get under. That cat could gnaw it through and be in before he got out. Maybe if he sat on the back, he could get away quicker. He got up and dragged his chair after him across the room. The smell was near. Maybe he'd count. He could count to 1,000. Won't no guy for 5 miles could count that far. He started counting. Moose in the lake wouldn't be back for 6 hours yet. Tomorrow night they won't go, but the cat was gonna get him tonight. Let me go with you boys and smell him out for you. I, the only one, can smell around here. He'd lose him in the woods. They'd say hunting wildcats wasn't no business for him. I ain't afraid, or no wildcats, nor no woods neither. Let me go with you, boys, let me go. Ain't no reason to be afraid to stay here for yourself, they'd laugh. Ain't nothing gonna get ya. We take you up the road to Maddie's if you're scared. Maddie's, take him to Maddie's. Sittin' with women, with y'all, what y'all think I is. I ain't afraid of no wildcat. But it comin', boys. And it ain't gonna be in the woods. It gonna be here. Y'all wasting your time in the woods. Stay here, and you kilt it. He was supposed to be counting. Where'd he left off? 500 and 506. Maddie's. What was they thinking he is? 502, 500 and sat stiff in the chair, with his hands gripped tight on the stick across his knees. It won't gonna get him like this. Gonna get him like he was a woman. His shirt was stuck wet to him, making him smell higher. The man had come back later in the night with a rabbit and 2 squirrels. He began to remember the other wild cat, and remembered as if he had been in Hazu's cabin instead of with the women. He wondered, was he Hazul? He was Gabriel. He won't gonna get him like Hazul. He was gonna hit it. He was gonna pull it off. How he gonna do all that? He hadn't been able to wring a chicken's neck for years. It was gonna get him. Won't nothing do but wait. The smell was near. Won't nothing for old people to do but wait. He was gonna get him tonight. The teeth would be hot and claws cold. The claws would sink in soft, and the teeth would cut sharp and scrape his bones inside. Gabriel felt the sweat on him. It can smell me. It can smell me good. I can smell it, he thought. I sitting here smelling it comin'. Here smelling 240. Where he left off at? 405. There was a sudden scratching at the chimney. He sat forward, tense, tight-throated. "Come on," he whispered. "I here, I waitin'." He couldn't move. He couldn't make himself move. There was another scratching. It was plain he didn't. It was the pain he didn't want, but he didn't want the waiting either. "I hear." There was another, just a small noise and then a flutter. Bats. He gripped the stick. His grip on the stick loosened. He should have known that it weren't it. It weren't no further than the barn yet. What ails his nose? What ails him? Won't no boy for 100 miles could smell like he could. He smelled the scratching again. He heard the scratching again, coming differently, coming from the corner of the house where the cat hole was. Pick, pick, pick. That was a bat. He'd known that was a bat. Pick, pick. "Here I is," he whispered. "Warn't no bat." He braced his feet to get up. Pick. "Lord waitin' on me," he whispered. "He don't want me with my face torn open. Why don't you go on, wildcat? Why you want me?" He was on his feet now. "Lord don't want me with no wildcat marks." He was moving towards the cat hole, across the river bank. The Lord was waiting on him with a troop of angels in golden vestments for him to put on, and when he came, he'd put on the vestments and stand there with the Lord and the angels judging life. Won't no boy for 50 miles fitter to judge than him. Pick. He stopped. He smelled it right outside, nosing the hole. He had to climb onto something. He was going. What he was. Let's see. He had to climb onto something. What he going towards it for? He had to get on something high. There was a shelf nailed over the chimney, and he turned wildly and fell against the chair and shoved it up to the fireplace. He caught hold of the shelf and pulled himself onto the chair and sprung up and backwards and felt the narrow shelf board under him for an instant, and then felt it sag and jerk his feet up, and felt it crack somewhere from the wall. His stomach flew inside him and stopped hard, and the shelf board fell across his feet, and the rung of the chair hit against his head, and then, after a second of stillness, he heard a low, grasping animal cry wail over 2 hills and fade past him, then snarls, tearing short, furious, then the pain wails. Gabriel sat stiff on the floor. "Cow," he breathed, finally. "Cow." Gradually he felt his muscles loosen. It got to her before him. It would go off now, but it would be back tomorrow night. He rose, shaking from the chair, and stumbled to his bed. The cat had been a half a mile away. He weren't sharp like he used to be. They shouldn't leave old people by themselves. He done told him they weren't gonna catch nothing in no woods. Tomorrow night it would come back. Tomorrow night they would stay here and kill it. Now he want to sleep. He done told 'em they couldn't get no wildcat in no woods. He the one told 'em where it was gonna be. They'd listen to him. They'd done had it by now. When he die, he want to be sleeping in a bed. He don't want to be on no floor with a wildcat stuck in his face. Lord willin'. When he woke up, the darkness was full of morning things. He heard Moss and Luke at the stove and smelled the side meat in the skillet. He reached for his stuff and filled his lip. "What y'all killed?" he asked. Trenchingly? "Ain't caught nothin' last night." Luke put the plate in his hand. "Here yo' side meat. How you bust that shelf?" "Ain't busted no shelf," old Gabriel muttered. Wind took it down and waked me in the middle of the night." It been due to fall. You ain't never built nothing that stayed together. We sort of trap, Mo said. We get that cat tonight. Y'all sure will, boys, Gabriel said. It'll be right here tonight. Ain't it done kill a cow half a mile here last night? That don't mean it comin' this way, Luke said. It comin' this way, Gabriel said. How many wildcats you killed, Grandpa? Gabriel stopped. The plate of side meat tremored in his hands. I know what I knows, boy. We get it soon. We sawed a trap over in Ford's woods. It been around there. We goin' up in a tree over the trap every night and wait till we gets it. Their forks were scraping back and forth over their tin plates like knife-sharp teeth against stone. You want some side meat, Grandpa? Gabriel put his fork back down on the quilt. No, boy, he said. No more side meat. The darkness was hollow around him, and through its depths animal cries wailed and mingled with the beats pounding in his throat. The end. There was a lot of smells. So I've never read that one before. It's an interesting ending. Does it mean that he's gonna die the next night if they don't listen to him? What do you guys think? Her stories are good. They really make you think, and though the accents are really hard to read out loud. Gosh, yeah, it's kind of an open ending there. Man. It's spooky. We should definitely end on something cheery. Oh, yeah. I'm a little spooked now. Wildcats. He's dead. The younger generation's too cocky. Oh, poor old man. A scared old man who works himself into terror every night. Eventually the fear will do it for him either way. I kind of wondered that when I was reading. I wondered if he would, when he was climbing the bookshelf, if he'd fall and die that way instead of the wildcat. But he made it through that night. Interesting how it went back to his, I don't know, it was interesting how it went back to his childhood and him being a blind boy and being like, no, I can fight the cat. And then him as an old man feeling the same way, but he's like, there's not a lot I can do now. You think he's just paranoid? Maybe. I'll probably chew on it a little bit. Maybe, I wonder if there's any, like, you know, anyone that's, like, analyzed the story. Maybe I'll look it up later. It's interesting. A lot of her stories are like that. Good writing, though. Hope you guys were enjoying it. It would be fun to read more of her stories on stream, but gosh, that's really hard to read. I don't know, maybe I should, I don't know, flip through the book and see if I can find an easier one. If I decide to read some more from there again. Let's see, wonder if I can find... It's getting late, so I'll probably wrap up soon. Do you guys have any more questions? Any more books that you've read that you really like? Maybe I can find a poem I've written before. Let's see here. Oh, I love sitting and listening to rain. Especially back home, where I grew up. We had a nice big porch. And one of my favorite things was sitting on the porch during a rainstorm. There's just something like magical about that. Listening to the rain, especially if it was like a good rainstorm and you get some like thunder and lightning and the wind blowing and you're just like sitting kind of back on the porch, like just feeling it all go by. So I think I found a poem I wrote sort of about that. It's storming there right now. Yes, peak ambiance. I love a good rainstorm. It's so cozy. Ooh, watching the sky flashing miles off over the Midwest plains. Very nice. Ooh, that does sound fun. I've mostly lived in hilly countries, or I don't know. I haven't ever been somewhere that's like long, big plains like that. Ooh, watching the rain over the lake. That sounds nice. All right, so here's a little poem for all of us about the rain. It's I called it "It has been too long since I heard the rain." I think I wrote this probably the same year I wrote the other story. Or maybe not. No, I think I was older. I think I was an older teen. I think we had a drought that year. So it goes. It's been too long since I heard the rain. We've had far too few cloudy days. The soil is dust, the forest ablaze, and at last we receive some rain. The wind picks up and the air grows damp. The droplets fall. Specular splat. Specular? I don't even know what I wrote. But happy am I who sits inside or in the yard with arms out wide. The sounds of the rain is a song so enchanting, and the wind the partner with whom I am dancing. Even if the wind screams like a banshee, it shall still be a sight to see. Let the thunder roll and the lightning spark. With it I shall synchronize my beating heart. Whether out in the storm or inside keeping warm, it's been too long since I heard the rain. Short little thing, but I guess summed up my feelings at the time. Need some more tea. I like the Clash of Eagles, alternate history where Rome didn't fall and they discovered America. That sounds fun. Alt history books are pretty fun. I have an sort of alt history book in my mind that I'm slowly thinking and kind of working on. It's going to take a lot of research though. So it's probably going to be a while before I can get it all together, but maybe I need to try and research more while I can. Rainstorms are wonderful. Lots of nostalgia from being at my grandpa's and hearing the rain hit aluminum carport roof. So calming. That sounds nice. Man, now I wish it was raining. I love like snuggling to sleep during a good rainstorm. Yeah, something about it. So nice. Oh, yes, I need to read Goodnight Moon. Alt history is really fun. I'm trying to think. I feel like I can't think of any specific alt histories I've read lately. I love just like the ability to play around with ideas and stories though. Like that's also why I like speculative fiction. Is you can like, you know, like with the story I've got in my mind, is you can kind of take concepts and push them, you know, try and source out like their logical end and play around of like, oh, if this was like that, what would things look like? Takes a bit of you know, research and kind of planning things, but really fascinating to me. Lack of research / plausibility is the primary fall of most alt histories I've read. Yeah. It's tricky because you're dealing with history, but you're also taking a new direction, but you gotta have a pretty good basis to work from. And then also it helps to know history to, you know, if you're coming up with new history, you know, history repeats itself. So in a way, you're just researching previous history and then trying to be like, okay, if this happened, then, you know, what next might happen, and kind of knowing other things that have happened through different points of history kind of helps your general knowledge of, like, I don't know, how to build things. Need to get back to writing. Life's busy, but someday I'll get back to it. I need to figure out small little ways, small steps, baby steps, baby steps. I don't know, write a few little flash fictions. Maybe I can try that. Maybe I can find pictures I've taken from antique stores and write little flash fictions to post on Twitter as a way to encourage myself to keep writing some more. Good tea, good tea. Alright, well, I think now it's time for some Goodnight Moon. I don't have the book in my hand, but I bet I could read it from memory. I'm gonna try it. If I mess up, then I'll find the book. Alright, chat. You ready to be tucked in for bed? For anyone that's going to bed? Tuck, tuck, tuck. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Story time. Nice little comfy Goodnight Moon. Alrighty. Oh wait, here's the book. I do this with one hand. Here we go. Alright, last story. I hope you guys have enjoyed this story time with Minna. I'm glad you guys hung out with me and shared some stories and chatting with me. I'm looking forward to teaching you guys about bread on Sunday night, I think 10. We're going to talk all about the bread. I'm going to teach you guys how to do it so you can make your own delicious bread. All right. Good night, Moon. In the great green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. And there were 3 little bears sitting on chairs, and 2 little kittens and a pair of mittens, and a little toy house and a young mouse, and a comb and a brush and a bowl full of mush, and a quiet old lady who was whispering, "Hush. Good night, room. Good night, moon. Good night, cow jumping over the moon. Good night, light and the red balloon. Good night, bears. Good night, chairs. Good night, kittens, and good night, mittens. Good night, clocks, and good night, socks. Good night, little house, and good night, mouse. Good night, comb, and good night, brush. Good night, nobody. Good night, mush. And good night to the old lady whispering, "Hush." Good night, stars. Good night, air. Good night, noises everywhere. Alrighty. Good night. Atsu bread, everyone. I think that's how you say it. Otsu, Otsu. Oh no, Otsu Fresh. Otsu Fresh. I think I'm saying it right. Thank you for coming. Good night, good night. I hope you have a good day tomorrow.